Everyone, today I'm doing a skill breakdown for Sir Damas. He is a Christian Tyrant Marksman that you recruit through the alignment system, so you will need 8 points in both the Christian and Tyrant alignment to even unlock his recruitment mission. Sir Damas is an interesting hero. He has some unique abilities to him. Unfortunately, like a lot of the marksmen right now, it's nothing really crazy, but he does seem to have a bit higher single target damage than most of the other marksmen, so he does kind of have that going for him right now. Hopefully, whenever marksmen do get that balance patch coming their way, which I'm just confident they're going to get at some point soon. But, anyways, let's go ahead and get into the skills, and I'll go over what he has and what you have to look forward to if it interests you. Tier 1, we have the basic shoot attack, 100% weapon damage for 8 range. There's a 9 here because of a skill upgrade. We'll get to that later. The upgrades is pretty standard like everything else. There's torture and weak spots, which is 20% additional damage against burning units and poisoned units. Weak spots is very useful for him, as he does have a way of setting the poison condition, so he can self-synergize. Torture, you're going to want to be bringing someone that can set the burn condition to set this up for him. If you're doing a Christian Tyrant run, you're probably going to be using Ector for most of your run, as he's your only Arcanist, and he has a couple ways to set burn, so this is actually a decent upgrade for your Christian Tyrant runs. Piercing Arrow, so he can bypass 4 armor, and Elusive, if he kills a unit, reduce cooldowns by 1. As it currently stands, getting into the endgame, it is a little hard to get kills with Marksman, especially with the larger HP pools, so you're definitely going to be wanting to pick up some of those seasonal relics for souls. There's some really good ones for Marksman to help them reach this point if you want to keep using them in the endgame. Even on lower difficulties, higher ones, you're really going to have to work to make this work. He has the very familiar Poisoned Arrow. 100% weapon damage sets the poison condition, which of course is a 10% damage dot and a 20% damage reduction debuff to the enemy. With upgrades, Agony Shot, you can increase the duration by 1. Toxic Arrow, increase the weapon damage by 15%. And then Sickness, cause a 20% vulnerability debuff for the duration of the poison. So if you want the vulnerability debuff to last longer, that just kind of further incentivizes taking Agony Shot. And the last one, Poison Blast. If you kill the target with the initial hit from Poisoned Arrow, it'll actually poison adjacent targets to them within 2 tiles, so it's a pretty good debuff spreader. Overall, this move is kind of your opening shot, because then your follow-up shoot will be stronger. It has better base damage, so if there's an enemy low on health, you definitely want to check between Poison Arrow and Shoot to see which one may get the kill. Poison Arrow may actually be able to do it, even if they are immune to poison, like a Lost. However, he does have a unique shot to him that's kind of like his big damage dealing move for single target, and this is his hardest hitting move. We have Crippling Shot, 150% weapon damage and causes slow for 1 turn. The weapon damage percentage is very good, 150%, that's a lot. You want to see that for really what your big attack moves are. It also causes slow, which is a useful CC. It has a fairly high cost, the base cost is 6. Currently, it is reduced due to an upgrade we will cover later, with a base cooldown of 3. With the first upgrade of Barbed Arrows, you get plus 15%, so 165% is really good. Heavy Blow, it also causes knockback, so just more of that single target CC. Poisoned Arrows, it now also causes the poison condition itself, so you can kind of use this as a substitute for Poison Arrow when it's not on cooldown. And then Tormentor, reduce the cooldown by 1, bring it down to a cooldown of 2. Much like Poisoned Arrow, so you can kind of alternate between them. This is a pretty good damage move as far as marksmen go. This is probably one of the highest damage moves that any of the marksmen have access to for single target. Next is Scout. This is the upgradable version, so you get plus 1 perception and a movement AP with some decent upgrades on it. Recon, you get 2 movement AP for the first turn, so you can kind of set up a little bit for free. Very useful. Evasive, minus 6 damage from ranged attacks. Enemy ranged units are a pretty big issue, especially for marksmen, because they have very little armor, so being able to reduce damage they are taking is very, very good, as they won't have much in the way of armor to do that. On the run, plus 1 AP at the start of your turn if 5 or more AP was spent on the previous turn for movement. This is good if you're using that to try and recoup a little bit to set up for a next turn. but I am pretty much never spending that much AP on movement, so not really worth taking. It's not that good in the first place anyways. First dodge, the first ranged hit you just automatically avoid, so just another way to help avoid damage for your relatively squishy marksman. Deflection, -7 damage from ranged attacks, so now we have a total of -13. This is a really good combo between these two. Adrenaline, 1 AP when killing a unit. This is very, very good early in the game, like Act 1, even most Acts 2, because your marksmen, even on the highest difficulty, are still very strong, very efficient. They will be getting a lot of AP back with this. On lower difficulties, as they currently stand, going into the higher difficulties, marksmen are still fine. You will definitely struggle to get more use out of this on higher difficulties farther into the game. And the last one is Ready, plus 20% Overwatch damage. Again, also a very good early game skill. I find myself using Overwatch a lot, actually, with my Marksman during Act 1 and 2, so this is a great pick to have for that. I find myself using it less even later into the game if I'm still using a Marksman, so I kind of move away from this one as I level up. Tier 2, we have a Vanguard skill unique for Marksman, Gas Trap. Unfortunately, Gas Trap is not great, so it's cool that he has a unique ability. I think this is a terrible move, unfortunately, so I've met a couple people that actually really like Gas Trap. I do not, so I avoid this. He does start with it, so you will have to respec if you want to move away from it yourself. It's just extremely expensive, and unless you have a really surefire way of making sure they'll walk over it, it's a lot of AP that goes to waste if they happen to sidestep around it. I don't think the effect is super good either. I think it's okay, but going into it, it is just like any other trap. They have to step on it to trigger it, but once it's triggered, it fills a 3x3 tile range. So it does have AoE on effect. It deals 75% weapon damage to every unit within this cloud, and they take an additional 20% at the start of their turns. Additionally, they will take a damage proc as they try to move through it. So the enemy that triggers it will at least take 1 movement damage, as they will have to move through at least one other tile no matter which way they go to try and escape it. With upgrades, you give it poison gas, so now it causes poison for 2 turns. If you're going to take Gas Trap, this is definitely one you want to take, because then it will get bonuses from one of the passives I'll be talking about here later in Tier 2. Enfeeble does cause Weaken, which is a good debuff. Corrosive Gas, they lose armor at the start of their turn, scales up with level up to 5. And Thick Cloud, it slows them. So it has some decent upgrades here. Just the base move itself, I think, is just way too expensive. Doesn't do really great damage. Maybe play with it yourself, maybe you'll like it. Next is Dash, the Marksman mobility move. It's a mobility move, so by default, it's really good. With a cost of 1, base of 2, and a base cooldown of 3, you can get that down to 2 as well. You can very cheaply reposition or escape from any enemies that manage to reach melee. Just a very good move. First upgrade is Keen Eye, decrease the AP cost of Overwatch by 1 after dashing. Again, this may be more useful early in the game when you're overwatching more, or if you're overwatching even late into the game. I don't personally, but if you are, this is probably worth doing. Sprint, reduce the cost by 1. Extended Dash, increase the range by 2. And Persistence, decrease the cooldown by 1. These 3 are pretty much always going to be taking, because 2-turn cooldown, 2 to 8 range, AP cost of 1. It's just an extremely efficient move that you're going to be using pretty much in every encounter. The next passive is a standard for Marksman, but it's a really good one. Alchemist, decrease the AP cost of skills that cause poison by 1. That's why if you're taking Gas Trap, you definitely want to take Poison Gas, because a 5 AP cost at least is okay. This is what brings our Crippling Shot cost down to 5 instead of 6, and our Poison Arrow cost down from 4 to 3. So having this be a cheaper option too over Shoot makes Poison Arrow very good, and Crippling Shot, 6 AP is a lot to ask. It's a pretty rough break point. Down to 5 I think is sort of okay, just 1 more than the basic Shoot for 65% more base damage. Not bad trade-off, I think. This does also extend to a skill we'll get to in Tier 3, but for the upgrades, extra damage, 10% weapon damage for skills that cause poison. So that's good, obviously, for these, and then if this, you take it, and then the skill in Tier 3 will cover. Long duration, increase poison effects by an extra 1 turn. Generally, I just kind of find this unnecessary, so I usually don't take it. Master Poisoner, increase the damage debuff effect by 50%. So now it's basically 30% for these damage reductions, it's multiplicative, not additive. So this does not suddenly become a 70% damage debuff. That would be absurdly strong, too strong even, I think. But that being said, the way this is worded is a little unnecessarily confusing. You could just basically say 10%, because I don't think any poison debuff in the game does more than 20% at base. But I do think it could stand to get a little bit of a buff. Maybe just like a flat 15%. For the last one, corrosion. Now poisoned targets lose armor. I mean, this is okay. It's only 2, so it is not a lot. And there's just a lot more ways to burn armor faster. If your party comp is struggling with breaking armor because maybe you're not running a champion, just having extra armor break where you can get it isn't bad, I suppose. That's something to consider. First shot plus 15% weapon damage for the first attack on each turn, as long as you haven't spent any regular AP. You can still use movement AP to like reposition and then get your shot off and keep this damage buff. So this is just a good enabler for your opening attack, something like crippling shot, for example. And low profile, something that I think a lot of marksmen could actually stand to benefit from. Enemies prioritize attacking any other unit if this hero is farther than 6 tiles away from them. So Vanguards have this. I think marksmen could definitely benefit from it too. Vanguards have the ability to hide. Marksmen don't. So being able to basically shift taunt onto the rest of their party away from one of your squishiest party members is a very good survival ability for your marksmen to protect them from enemy ranged units. Last in Tier 3, first up is the only Tier 3 active skill, the sort of infamous Poison Bomb. It's essentially identical at base to Fire Blast from Ector, only it's a Tier 3 ability, which is part of the reason why I think this ability is just really bad. 5 AP cost at base, which is a lot, for a 70% weapon damage effect in a 3x3 area. It has a 3-turn cooldown, which isn't terrible. You definitely want to give it this Pestilence upgrade, which is what allows it to actually set the poison condition, so now it gets the benefits of the Alchemist passive. Potent Blast is plus 15% weapon damage for 85%, which is a lot more bearable. Acid Blast for some armor loss, again only if you're really struggling with armor break in your party comp. And Reliable Toxins reduce the cost by 1, so between the two upgrades, it has a cost of 3, which I think is much, much better for this kind of ability. The damage still isn't great, but there has been sort of an indirect buff to this ability through the new seasonal relics. There is one that does directly buff one damage over time effects, which is good for poison. I did mention how I think it could stand to do more damage, and also directly buffs damage for Poison Bomb. I haven't yet tested this out, so I do plan to sort of do a follow-up video for Marksman in particular, because they did seem to get a lot of really good seasonal relics, and see how much this really did help them. But ignoring the relic, this ability is just really mediocre, and what I think makes it bad is the fact that it's a Tier 3 ability. You really take this just because it's the only AoE he has access to. The first passive is Cover Expert, which provides a lot of good bonuses, but only if you're in cover. And there's a lot of maps where sometimes you're not going to end up in cover, or you would just have to waste a bunch of AP moving to cover, or sometimes the cover breaks your line of sight on some enemies. So this is a very sort of niche passive with some strong effects, but because it's niche, I generally invest my skill points elsewhere. For example, the base one, +1 range for all skills. Really good, but from cover. Sharpshooter, plus 10% weapon damage. That's good, marksman need damage, but only from cover. Perseverance, 20% physical debuff resist. Sustained armor, all your armor becomes unbreakable. This one isn't very good to begin with. Like you can see, I have level 20 armor on Damas, and I have 2 armor. 2 unbreakable armor is nothing. And then a 10% damage reduction while in cover. So all of these, other than this one, are pretty good. I just think cover maybe isn't the best thing to be incentivizing with Marksman. The next one, Long Reach, +1 tile range for all attacks. Arcanists have a version of this, as well as a couple other specific characters to just get the +1 range. Marksmen get some upgrades to them that are actually pretty decent. Eagle Eye, plus 10% weapon damage for a unit that's at least 6 tiles away. This is your marksman, you want him to be far away from enemies, so this isn't too hard to get this upgrade and have it be active. And this applies for the other 3 upgrades as well. Far shot, +1 range when your hero's at maximum AP, so basically it's +1 range for your first attack. Generally, you're positioned away where all your attacks can hit anyways, so this one's very niche, I think. Disengaged, +10% weapon damage. If you are disengaged, that means there are no enemies within 5 tiles of you. And prepared, +25% weapon damage for the first attack in the encounter. So basically, your first attack of the entire encounter, if stacked with first shot, is +40%. So just a strong opener, I guess. Evasion, this is another dodge ability, which is going to be useful. Dodge the first incoming melee attack each turn. Scout for another movement AP, just useful for repositioning and a perception. And then Hunter, AP cost of all skills are reduced by 1 when only 1 enemy is present. So this is basically a move for when you're fighting bosses, but even then it won't have 100% uptime, because a lot of bosses have abilities to summon minions to help them, or they start with minions present. So even against bosses, this has inconsistent uptime and makes this ability very niche. And that covers all the skills for Sir Damas. Again, it's most of the same stuff that you'll see me talk about for most marksmen. He does have a couple unique things to him that I think are in varying ranges of usefulness. He has a very good passive that I think all marksmen could stand to benefit from. He has one active skill that I think is just bad, and he has another active skill that I think for marksmen is very good. So little bit all over the board for him. I know I sort of repeat a lot of these kind of issues with a lot of these skills that marksmen have. And if you watch all my videos, first, I appreciate it, thank you. But I can get if that may start to get a little repetitive or something for you, but just want to keep in mind and reaffirm this for anyone where maybe this is the first time watching a video where I talk about marksmen so they can kind of understand my perspective on them in general. Doing these videos, I want to explain my sort of views on the abilities, how useful I kind of think they are, what abilities I think they work with amongst his own skill tree, but also kind of give a decent assessment on them so you can kind of come to a decision of, is this a hero I want to be using in my own party combinations? I hope that all makes sense, and as always, thanks for watching.